This is a much more interesting background. Howdy! My name is Nona, and tabletop role-playing games have been around for almost 50 years now. And in that time, a lot of different mindsets have formed and cemented themselves among the player base. Monsters need to be killed. Gold needs to be earned, and initiative needs to be rolled. In a lot of ways, these mindsets have been incredibly helpful in streamlining the RPG process. When everyone's already on the same page, the game gets moving a lot quicker and more smoothly. However, some of these mindsets are a bit dated, and in some cases are restricting our ability to tell compelling and immersive stories. Today, I want to talk about one of these mindsets in particular that has warped more and more over the years to the point where I believe it is inherently harmful to the game as a whole. I'm, of course, if you read the title of the video, talking about the mindset that failure is bad. If you lose a combat, you did something wrong. If you fail a skill check, you didn't build your character right. Or if your character dies, it's inherently a bad thing. But before we get too deep into things, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, the Gardener's Guide to Gaming Kickstarter. I just wanted to make use of having more room behind me, so I decided to do like a dramatic intro. It was pretty stupid. If you're familiar with the Botanical bestiary, the same team behind that supplement is going full on with their Kickstarter. They are making an entire full on supplement for your table. I'm talking GM options, player options, monsters, the whole 9 yards. If the campaign gets funded, you are looking at a whole new class, new ancestries, heritages, archetypes, monsters, items, spells, literally every aspect of the PF2 system is seeing some new content in the Gardener's Guide to Gaming. Oh, and did I forget to mention, the entire supplement is also going to be D&D 5th edition compatible. So if you want a bunch of botanical themed content for your fantasy RPG of choice, you have no reason not to check it out. They haven't released much information on the new Carver class, but the iconic is adorable. And if they manage to hit their funding goal, they've got multiple stretch goals for even more content, like new ancestries, new items, new spells, new monsters, basically just making this big book even bigger. So if this supplement looks interesting to you, follow the link in the description and check out the Gardener's Guide to Gaming Kickstarter. At the time of recording this, they just passed $8,000 out of their $10,000 goal with 2 weeks left. I know with your support, we can absolutely crush that $10,000 goal and get the Gardener's Guide to Gaming available to tables everywhere. Thank you so much, Gardener's Guide, for sponsoring today's video. Let's talk about failure. In retrospect, that's a really weird transition from Kickstarter to failure. You're not going to fail, it's the video topic we're talking about that happens to be the one that is being sponsored by you, so the failure has nothing to do with your Kickstarter. Now, from an outside perspective, the mindset of failure equals bad makes complete sense, especially if your only context for anything fantasy or role-playing game is video games. In a video game, if your character dies, game over. You lose, you did it wrong, try again. You do everything you can to avoid the game over. And this mindset has definitely crossed over into tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder. You know, when people are playing these games, they don't want to game over their campaign. But what's so interesting to me is that this mindset is no longer just for new players. I know people who have been playing for years or even decades who also subscribe to the mindset that failure is inherently bad. If my character dies, either I did something wrong, or the game sucks. Now, this isn't me telling you you're wrong for having this mentality, and if you truly have more fun where success is all that matters, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to tell you how to have fun. What I don't think is okay is the effect this mindset has had on the grand scale of tabletop role-playing. If you tell someone a story about the time your warlock got captured and then publicly executed, you know, some people might respond like, oh, that's such a cool, intriguing story. But a lot of people might respond with, why didn't you just Misty step out of the chains? Or maybe like, ropes only have 2 hit points, you could have just Eldritch Blasted it and run away. And that's because these people see the execution of this player's warlock as an inherent loss. Your character died, you lost D&D. Why didn't you try to win instead? What a lot of people don't seem to understand is that this isn't them losing the game. This is them utilizing the death of their character as an important story beat. This can springboard into so many diverging paths from the straight line they might have been following. Maybe now the party has all the more reason to investigate the corrupt government that executed their friend. Or maybe they didn't even know their friend was guilty of something and is curious enough to look into the crime to try to find proof on whether they did or didn't do it. What I'm trying to say is that failure opens just as many doors as success. Sure, you can absolutely escape from your public execution and go on the run. That's a totally engaging plot point. But there are so many unexplored avenues of stories that will never get witnessed because people are too afraid of failure. There's a classic example of this that has been given 100 different times, and I still stand by it. If the party TPKs in combat, don't kill them. Maybe they all wake up with no equipment, bound in chains in a prison. All of a sudden, they have this entire new side plot to get their stuff back, figure out where they are, and get revenge on these people who completely overpowered and captured them. There is another common issue with this mentality that actually falls to the GM instead of the players. And that's that it's really hard and sometimes feels bad as a GM to tell your players, you fail. It sucks when I'm GMing and I critically hit my players and say, you take 32 points of damage, and I hear them dejectedly say, well, I'm out of hit points, I'm down, okay. Because I know they're out of the game for at least 10 minutes or unless they get brought back up, and there's both a fear and apathy of the idea that, well, if we lose, I guess I'm making a new character, oh well. It's really difficult to portray a failing situation where it doesn't feel like you're punishing the player. And the reason it's so hard is because, yes, the character should be punished for their shortcomings, but that doesn't mean you should punish the player because of it. The next time something like this happens, consider a different approach. Let's say your player fails an athletics check to balance across a thin chasm. Well, they fail, so they fall and they're not able to grab the ledge. But maybe don't deal damage to them, and don't even give them a condition. Maybe they fall completely fine, and now they're just in a different part of the cave system, separated from the rest of their party. This party-splitting separation is punishment enough in the story. There's no reason to lower their stats along with it. Now, obviously, if they fell 150 feet with no slow fall or anything, maybe they should take some damage. But if it's a small enough fall where the separation makes sense but they wouldn't die, just let them focus on the separation rather than their character sheet. A good way to help your characters get used to the idea of failure is to actually hide rewards behind potential failures. If that character fell into the chasm, sure, they're separated from the party, but maybe they found a skeleton of a dead adventurer who still has some gold and magic items on them. Now, obviously, you don't want to aggrandize the idea of failure. Don't reward them every single time they fail, otherwise it's not going to matter. But occasionally, sliding a little reward for good roleplay or rolling with the punches can be a great way to reaffirm your players that failure is not inherently always bad. The character should still be trying to succeed, but make sure that they also see failure as an equally interesting option. Honestly, a lot of this failure is bad mindset comes from the systems themselves. In D&D and Pathfinder, you only progress by succeeding. You only get experience points by succeeding and defeating encounters. If you fail, you get nothing. And can we talk about how backwards this is? Like, compared to real life, you don't learn things from success. Okay, you learn a little bit, you learn what worked, and then if it keeps working, you don't learn anything else. You ride that. But every time you fail, you learn so much more. But the game has taught us otherwise. If you fail, you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. And the only way forward in life and in the story is by constant, continuous success with no failures. A failure just holds you back. There are, however, games out there that do encourage failure. Such games like Call of Cthulhu, one of my personal favorites. If you talk to avid Call of Cthulhu fans, they're not afraid of failure. Sure, sometimes one failure could lead to the death of your character in a particularly bad situation, but they don't mind failure because it's the only way to get better. Call of Cthulhu's rule set actively rewards you for failing skill checks. If you fail a skill check, you get to put a little mark next to it, and at the end of the session, you get a chance to permanently improve that skill by 1. If you succeed the skill check, you don't get anything. Well, you do get to accomplish the task you set out to do. The reward for success is succeeding what you were trying to do, while the reward for failure is being more prepared next time. And that is so much more accurate to real world experience. I would love to find a way to integrate this system into D&D and Pathfinder, but the systems just aren't designed with that in mind, and trying to figure out a way to make that work would require rewriting the entire system. But what do you think? How do you feel about failure in tabletop role-playing? Do you prefer to just play games where success is the only way forward? You are there to be the big bad hero and save the world without failure? Or do you like to encourage failure in your games? Do you like having the opportunity that because you messed something up, you accidentally found something that will help you more than if you had succeeded? Let me know down in the comments below. You know I love reading them. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and Patreon supporters. If you would like to join the channel, there is a link in, not in the description, below the video. It's a little join button. I'm still not up to date on YouTube's new reworked layout, so it's somewhere. Find it. It's like an I Spy game. I also want to give a huge shout out to the Gardener's Guide to Gaming. Don't forget to click the link in the description to check out the Kickstarter and support them. Let's push them over that 10K. Let's make this supplement a reality for PF2 and D&D 5e. That's it for me. If you want to find more, check out these videos. I've started covering all the archetypes in Pathfinder 2e, so if you want to check those out, start right here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones. Oh, this looks so much better than a blank white wall.